Hello, history lovers and curious minds. Get ready for a time travel journey that will leave you speechless. We're about to dive into one of the most intriguing and little-known episodes of the Cold War, the story of the CIA's explosive cigar. Imagine this. It's 1961. The world is divided between two superpowers, and at CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, a group of highly trained agents is gathered. The topic at hand? How to neutralize a perceived threat just 150 kilometers off the coast of Florida. The target, Fidel Castro, and the weapon in question, believe it or not, an explosive cigar. Sounds like something out of a spy movie, doesn't it? But this story is 100% real. It's a testament to the creativity, determination, and yes, sometimes desperation that characterize this era of global tensions. Before we delve into this fascinating plot, I have a challenge for you. How many attempts to neutralize Castro do you think were planned over the years? 10, 50, 100? Leave your guesses in the comments and prepare to be surprised by the answer. To understand how we got to the point of considering an explosive cigar as a viable option, we need to travel back in time and immerse ourselves in the context of the era. It's 1959 and the world is at the height of the Cold War. Cuba, a small island in the Caribbean, had just undergone a revolution led by Fidel Castro. The new Cuban government quickly aligned itself with the Soviet Union, becoming a communist ally just 150 kilometers from the United States coast. Imagine the scenario. It's as if, suddenly your neighbor became best friends with your biggest rival. The tension was palpable, and the United States found itself facing an unprecedented strategic dilemma. The American government, led by young President John F. Kennedy, was under immense pressure. The threat of a Soviet base so close to American territory was seen as an unacceptable risk to national security. It's crucial to understand that at that time the fear of communism was real and widespread. It wasn't just a political issue but something that affected the daily lives of American citizens. The fear of nuclear war was ever present. In this context of high tension, the CIA was tasked with developing strategies to deal with the situation in Cuba. And that's how one of the most creative and controversial operations in intelligence history was born, Operation Mongoose. Operation Mongoose wasn't just another CIA mission. It was a comprehensive and multifaceted effort to deal with what was perceived as a growing threat in Cuba. Imagine an elite think tank bringing together the brightest minds in strategy, technology, and espionage. Their goal? To develop methods to destabilize Castro's regime and neutralize its influence. The operation encompassed a wide range of tactics, from propaganda and economic sabotage to, well, more direct methods. And this is where things get really interesting. The agents involved in Operation Mongoose were encouraged to think outside the box. Nothing was considered too absurd if it could potentially achieve the objective. Poison disguised as facial cream, it was considered. An explosive seashell placed at a diving spot, it was on the list. A contaminated cigar, certainly an option given Castro's well-known habit, but nothing, absolutely nothing, captures the imagination like the infamous explosive cigar. It's easy to judge these ideas with today's eyes, but it's crucial to remember the context. These were dedicated men and women, working under extreme pressure, in a world that seemed to be constantly on the brink of catastrophic conflict. Operation Mongoose shows us how far nations are willing to go when they feel threatened. It's a reminder of the complexity of international relations and the ethical dilemmas that arise in times of conflict. Now let's focus on the crown jewel of CIA operations, the explosive cigar. If this sounds like something out of a James Bond movie, it's because reality sometimes surpasses even the wildest fiction. Imagine the scenario. Castro, known for his love of cigars, lights what appears to be an ordinary cigar. He takes a puff and boom! The idea was that a small explosive charge would eliminate the perceived threat in an instant. But how exactly would this device work? Well, this is where science meets espionage. CIA engineers faced quite a challenge: to create an explosive small enough to fit in a cigar, powerful enough to be effective, but discreet enough not to raise suspicion. The proposed solution was ingenious, a tiny heat-activated detonator. When the cigar was lit, the heat would reach a critical point and, well, you can imagine the rest. But the challenges didn't stop there. How to introduce the cigar into Castro's personal supply? This would require an agent infiltrated into the Cuban leader's inner circle, someone with nerves of steel and magician-worthy skills. What if Castro offered the cigar to someone else? What if he noticed something strange before lighting it? There were countless variables, each one potentially resulting in catastrophic failure. The explosive cigar is a testament to human creativity, even when applied to controversial ends. It's a reminder that, in times of crisis, nations may resort to measures that, in retrospect, seem almost unimaginable. So, we have an elaborate plan, an elite team, and a well-defined target. What could go wrong? Well, like many secret operations, the explosive cigar plan never left the drawing board. That's right, after all this meticulous planning, the idea was never put into practice. Why? Well, even in the world of espionage, there's a risk versus reward calculation. The potential for failure was simply too high. Imagine the diplomatic repercussions if such an operation were discovered. Moreover, there were ethical and legal issues to consider. The United States, as a nation founded on the rule of law, faced a significant moral dilemma with such operations. But don't think the CIA easily gave up on its efforts. Over the years, various plans were developed to deal with the situation in Cuba. Some estimates speak of hundreds of planned operations. The fact that Castro survived all these plans raises fascinating questions. Did he have a sixth sense for danger? Was his security simply impenetrable? Or, in the end, is the most direct approach not always the most effective in the complex arena of geopolitics? This story reminds us that in reality, espionage is rarely as glamorous or successful as movies make us believe. Now you must be wondering, how did this story come to light? After all, it's not like intelligence agencies publish their secret plans, right? Well, in 1975, the United States Senate, led by Senator Frank Church, initiated a series of investigations into the activities of American intelligence agencies. It was a moment of national introspection, an effort to balance national security with democratic principles. When these operations came to light, they caused shock. For many, it was difficult to reconcile the image of the United States as a defender of democracy with these tactics of secret warfare. This period of revelations led to significant reforms in how intelligence operations are conducted and supervised in the United States. It was a moment of learning and adjustment for the nation, and Castro, well, he seemed to take it all in stride. Years later, in an interview, he joked, "If surviving assassination attempts were an Olympic sport, I would have the gold medal." And so we come to the end of our story of the cigar that never exploded. A story that makes us reflect on the limits of human creativity, even when applied to controversial ends. What can we learn from all this? That the reality of geopolitics is often more complex and nuanced than we imagine? That even the most powerful nations can find themselves in situations that challenge their principles? Perhaps the lesson is that, in the world of espionage and international politics, simple solutions are rarely effective for complex problems. And you, what would you do if you were in the place of these decision-makers? How would you deal with an international crisis without compromising ethical principles? Leave your ideas in the comments. Wow, what a journey through time and space, right? From the corridors of power in Washington to the beaches of Cuba, passing through the CIA's secret laboratories. If this story intrigued you, imagine what we have prepared for upcoming videos. History is full of fascinating events waiting to be explored, and we're here to unravel them with you. Don't forget to leave your like, share with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our next historical adventures. Until next time, and remember, history is always more fascinating and complex than we imagine at first glance.